So the finals are set. The finals start soon, and it's Miami versus Denver. And this is honestly one of the most surprising finals we've seen in a while because it's two teams which had so many expectations when they came into the season, right? And then they faded away as the season went on. And then in the end of the season, they came back. In my opinion, you see with Denver, the story is that people were like, we're sick of giving Jokic the MVP and him getting 6 seeds. So until he can prove that he could do it in the playoffs, we're not going to call him the best player in the world. We're not going to call him the most valuable player. To the point where this season, yes, he did have a big slump in the end of the season, but let's face it, he almost averaged a triple double. He was the first seed in the West, and he was the most impactful player to winning, in my opinion, if you actually watch most of the games. Now, I understand that an MVP has to do it for the entire season, but that caused a lot of people to not like Jokic, even me. Like, I had a bias against Jokic because I had seen him so much. Like, is this the best player in the world? Is he a top 10 player? Right? Will he finish as a top 10 player? Because 2 MVPs is a serious stuff. Like, Giannis has 2 MVPs, and people are already ready to put him in the top 15. Some people, obviously, but where do you go from here if you're these two teams? If you're Denver, you proved everyone wrong already. You don't have to win the championship to make history and to prove people wrong about. You don't have to win the championship to prove to people that you are ready to be the best player in a championship team after this run that you've had. The lights are bright in the finals. I know Jimmy Butler's been there before and he performed. I know the Heat have been there before. I know Spo has been there before. But for the Nuggets, you just put this banner, this Western Conference banner up, and even if you don't win the finals, which obviously they are the favorites by far, but even if you don't win, you feel proud of yourself because you know that you have a championship core, which is probably going to win one if you just keep everything the same. For Miami, it's like they were just doubted. Miami is the king of just being doubted, even though they have good players. Like, they'll consistently every year bring in new guys who can actually play, right? From 2020 to 2021, it was 2020 to 2021, it was a development of Tyler Hero, as he showed out in the playoffs in 2020, and they really used him as now one of their best players, even though he hasn't been playing recently. Then from 2021 to 2022, they brought in a bunch of these role players, right? Who in 2021 they signed, but they hadn't put them to the use yet, right? In 2022, these role players like Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin and Hayward Highsmith and etc. Were brought in, and in 2022 they managed to show how good they were, like Homer Year 7, and they carried the Heat to a first seed. And in 2023 they did it again, but instead of this time bringing in new young players they could develop into stars in the playoffs, they brought in a bunch of veterans, who have played in the NBA for a long time, to fix the mentality of the Heat. Because let's face it, Jimmy Butler's a great mentor, but Jimmy Butler's tough. Like, he's very unsympathetic. He'll tell you everything to your face, and especially the Heat, they embrace him, and they love him, and that they love that he's like that. So for young guys, you sometimes just need that voice in your ear that can tell you, yo, I know that it's tough around here, but everything's going to be okay. Especially with you losing Udonis Haslem this year, who has been really the voice of Miami. I think he said yesterday, I'm the Heat culture, which I found very powerful because it's kind of true. Udonis Haslem really represents what Heat culture is. He's won rings with us as a starter, if I'm not mistaken. He's won rings with us off the bench. He's helped coach and prep guys into these historic performances and runs that we have. And I believe that bringing in guys like Kevin Love and Cody Zeller in 2023, that's really what made the change. I want to say that most of the Heat are an 8th seed due to injury and due to the fact that Jimmy Butler becomes a cone in the regular season. Like, he's a phenomenal player. He's an All-NBA caliber player. But let's face it, he is not better than 90% of the star players in the regular season. But in the playoffs, he's top three. Very easily in the playoffs, Jimmy Butler's top three, right? Like this year, it's been Jimmy Butler, right? Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray, right? Of course, it's easier to say when they made the finals, but those are the three guys who have consistently made the big shots and actually led their team to win series. So, in my opinion, what we need to see in the finals is just competitiveness. I know the Nuggets want to win it, but the Nuggets are a very polished team, and that either gets you very far or and brings you down, or that either gets you very far and wins you championships, right? Like we could see it from the Celtics in the 80s, right? Where they were this team which was so polished, like every single part was exactly what it needed to be. And they won 3 championships. But Magic, that whatever offense, just play defense, just run it through Magic, 10 assists, Kareem skyhooks. There was no polishing in that. It was just go, 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 attack, 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 and that won 5 championships. So, and even in recent times, we can see the Celtics, they're a very polished franchise, especially last year. But in my opinion, if you're very polished, like you have your 1 through 8 figured out with great players, everyone knows how to play with each other, there's a two-way mix in that where you always rely on your stars, so you need your stars to be awesome. But apart from that, I believe that it's been a great year of playoff basketball. I believe that this has been the best in the past 4 years, very easily since 2020. And I do not say that lightly. I did like 2021, the finals. I think that they were a great finals. The fact that they were down 2-0, they came back. All the great plays, all the times that Phoenix were trying to be saved by the refs, like that Devin Booker foul, which would have ejected him, etc. But in my opinion, there hasn't been a more complete playoffs than this year, right? When it comes to upsets, when it comes to good storylines, and when it comes to just in general providing a good product. I don't think we've seen a product this good since 2016. If I'm being honest, I know a lot of people don't like to think about that because in years like 2019, Kawhi became a legend, and in years like 2018, 2017, Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry, and you like to think about 2022, but if we really look at every matchup, this has been the only playoffs in the past, maybe 6 years? No, more, like 8 years, like 10 years, since maybe 2008 or 2009, right? Where people didn't know who was going to the finals, right? Like people this season, they predicted the Celtics, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Nuggets, Philly, and some people were, sprinkling that Bucks, right? So like more people were focused on Joel Embiid because he's, so good and through the regular season, and then it's like, what is he gonna do that he finally won the MVP? But this is like the most unexpected finals. When you have 6 teams which you're advocating for that could win the finals at the start of the playoffs, that makes for a great playoffs. And when none of those teams, right, make it to the finals, and one team beats 2 of the favorites, right, literally one team that has won a championship in 5 games, and the other team which made the finals last year in 7 games. Then in the West, the Nuggets, yeah, they did it, but it's how they did it, right? Oh, Phoenix was also posed to go far. The Lakers Warriors, that was awesome. That was a great matchup, and I believe that was one of the best series that we've gotten, purely off of just storyline and how that affects history. Also, I want to say that the Kings Warriors was awesome. It was awesome, and the latest playoff series have been like Denver versus Minnesota, and Philly versus Brooklyn. That's 2. The rest have been insanely good. So to sum all this up, I just want to say that this year's playoffs have been some of the best. Unexpected turns, great series, as we've only had 2 below average ones, extremely deep storylines, extremely good weaving up the story, which is the NBA, because even if it's not scripted, it is a story. And in my opinion, now with the Denver and Heat finals, may the best team win. Obviously, I'm a Heat fan, so I'm going to support the Heat, but I'm just happy that I made it through this playoffs. Watched a lot of the moments. I wasn't there for every single game, but I definitely was here for the experience, and I believe that these playoffs are awesome, and that we're probably going to be looking at these some of the best playoffs of all time when it's over.